Hello, I think we are live. All right, thank you so much everyone for joining us. Hello and welcome to our YALLWest Fandom Fireside Chat. We are so excited to be hosting this event and can't wait to get super nerdy with all of you and discuss all things Shadow and Bone, Broadway, Shadowhunters. Twilight probably is going to be in the mix because, you know, it's me. And Taylor Swift, I think we got a couple questions about Taylor. So, of course, we'll be letting our inner Swifties fly as well. I'm one of your co-hosts, DJ.
And I'm Lexi. So before we get started, we have a couple housekeeping and announcements that we're going to do. So we expect all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates the standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at our discretion, be immediately removed. You're welcome to chat with your fellow readers in the chat box on the side, and you can ask any of our authors questions using the Ask a Question feature down at the bottom. We also have a couple polls that are going to start running, so be sure to cast your vote, and we'll bring them up in conversation.
And as you know, we do have a special sweepstakes for all of you tonight. Our system is having a little bit technical issues. So we will, as we mentioned earlier, we'll send around the link after the chat to all of you who registered for the event as a thank you. We'll also be sharing links in the chat box that will take you to pages where you can purchase all of our authors' books. And speaking of our authors, tonight we are joined by Janella Angeles, the author of Where Dreams Descend and When Night Breaks, and Emma Lord, the author of Tweet Cute and You Have a Match, and then as well as Christine Riccio, the author of Again But Better and Better Together. So let's give everyone a warm welcome.
Woo!
I'm so excited. This is going to be so much fun. I cannot wait to spend this entire hour talking about Shadow and Bone.
I know. As if we haven't already been talking about Shadow and Bone for hours.
Right. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Great. Are you joining? All? Yeah, thank you so much. Are you excited to get like super nerdy and geeky and everything?
Yes.
So prepared.
I feel like this is what we all have been working towards for like a chat like this. So just a reminder, everyone, you can ask our authors a question using the Ask a Question feature. And I see that we have about 20 questions already, which is great. So Lexi, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so we're going to get started by taking a trip down memory lane. Okay, so we'll start with Emma. So what was like the first fandom that you really got obsessed with?
If I'm being honest, the very first fandom that I remember just like being like taking up my entire frontal lobe was Dragon Ball Z. My parents left on Cartoon Network at some point, and I just like latched onto Baby Gohan, and I was like, I will become you. So that was definitely. It seems strange because I feel like I'm not somebody who's like. Typically like, let's go watch something where a bunch of people punch each other over and over again. It really did it for me.
I love it. Okay, Janella, what about you?
Oh my gosh. I feel like my first like true fandoms were very like literary based. Like it makes sense I write what I write because of the fandoms I was in. So I was very fortunate enough to grow up in like the golden age of YA. So I don't know if like YA counts as a fandom, but like I grew up with Twilight when it first came out, with the Hunger Games, Divergent, Harry Potter, like all the big YA stuff was something that I just latched onto. And I would say that I was pretty obsessed with them when I was very young.
That's amazing. And Christine, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going real far back, I mean, obviously my first was Harry Potter. Like I was in love with that from the second I started reading in 3rd grade. But before that, American Girl, I don't know if y'all are obsessed with those books, but I loved them. And then Amelia's Notebooks, which were like made by the same company. Did anyone read those? Because I was like absolutely obsessed with Amelia's Notebooks. It was like
it was like her journals, and she like used to draw and doodle in them and like write things about her classmates, and it like made me want to journal. And that's like part of what made me like so obsessed with like wanting to write, because I read those notebooks. And then of course Harry came around, and like I was completely obsessed, and I forced my parents to get an Amazon account so that they could pre-order the 5th book. And I'll never forget like when it magically appeared on the doorstep, and it was just like I came home for a bar mitzvah and it was there. It's just like,
Love it.
I love that even back then you knew what like pre-ordering was. Like I feel like we talk about pre-ordering books all the time, and I love that like that was already part of your like journey in general. Kind of on a similar note to American Girl, just because based on like the different characters and they all had their own books. Does anyone remember those? I think it was like the Royal Diaries or like the princess ones from like all around the world. I was obsessed with them.
Yes.
I had
Why
those.
don't I know these?
Oh my god,
I didn't
they
like
were so
them,
good.
though.
I was like big mad that the Anastasia one like didn't alter history. I was like, oh, you've committed to historical accuracy. Like, you didn't just give me some wish fulfillment here.
I had that one. Yeah. Oh my god.
Very good. But Lexi, what about you? What was one of the earliest like fandoms you were a part of?
Mine is Twilight, like through and through. Like I don't remember anything before like the stage in life I was at when I read Twilight. Like literally that, like anything before that is like I don't remember anything until I joined like the Twilight Saga website, and I was making terrible graphic art, pretending I was like this hot shot and doing all this stuff and reading the fanfic about it and watching all the movies and binging the books. Like I was fully obsessed. Yeah. But then like ever since then, that's what started everything for me, and that's like why I'm here now. But yeah.
I think for me, you know, to go way, way back, I would say it would have to be Splash or The Little Mermaid, because those were like two of the oldest movies that I remember watching as a kid. And my parents had recorded Splash from it, like when it was running on TV. And so I had this VHS that had Splash and then Puff the Magic Dragon right after it. And I would just rewind it and watch both things back to back. So I guess we can throw Puff in there as well.
Nice.
And I just was like obsessed with both of those things. And then of course, you know, Twilight later, you know, came down the road. And I think for me, Twilight was like the real fandom turning point for me when I knew like what fandom was.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Twilight like invented fandom for me. I didn't know about fandom until Twilight.
Yeah. There was like the forums for it online. It just kind of like created that culture where like it was just anyone could talk about anything they wanted relating to it. And like Tumblr was also a huge part that helped like fuel a lot of it. Like I remember half of the music I still listen to is fan-made playlists for Twilight and the Hunger Games. Like people make like the song "Fix You" by Coldplay was everywhere on every like YA movie adaptation, like wannabe soundtrack, and I'm still obsessed with that song.
Yeah. For Harry Potter, it was almost like the internet wasn't present enough, like, or I wasn't old enough to like know how to use the internet, so I like missed that wave of fandom, except for like the podcasts and stuff. But it's not the same as Twilight, because we were like of age to be internet.
I remember like lurking on the Twilight Moms forum, because you know it wasn't like closed to everyone, so like you could just read it without having an account. But like for me, they were like the most active, you know, group that like kept up with all the books and the movies and everything. So like,
did you listen to the podcasts?
Okay, so I'm not a huge podcast person, but I want to be, and I know there are like several Twilight ones now with the Twilight Renaissance. So I need to like dive in and really get into the podcast world.
Back then I listened to like 4 Twilight podcasts.
Oh my God, Christine, I wonder if so my nerdy confession is my friends and I were so obsessed with Twilight, we made a podcast, and it was basically just like a bunch of screaming girls. I don't know if you listened to that, but I hope you did.
I listened to like these women drinking wine talking about
not me, definitely not me.
That's amazing.
I love it.
All right, so kind of related, what is the nerdiest thing that you've all done as a member of any one of the fandoms that you're a part of? Janella, do you want to start?
I mean, I feel like I already exposed myself with I made a Twilight podcast, but I brought a friend. The nerdiest thing is I have
amazing,
but he's actually life-size Edward as cardboard.
Love it.
And I would have him like in my room when I was like really obsessed, but he was scary sometimes because the silhouette just looked too lifelike. So that's why he's folded up in the basement now. But
That's
yeah,
incredible.
that's the nerdiest, or I guess like most Twilightiest thing I have.
All right, Emma, how about you?
I mean, mine's. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't say the method that I went about it was probably embarrassing. The actual doing of it wasn't embarrassing, but I wrote literally millions of words of fan fiction, and I like did it on the family desktop, like in front of like 3 siblings who were all like fighting to play Neopets, and I was like, no, I'm very busy bringing the entire cast of Les Mis back to life in a historically accurate manner. Like, you need to sit down and wait your turn. So I think that was probably like the most shameless thing that I ever did. Fandom wise, there was just a lot of, I had a lot of priorities back then that did not involve homework, but did involve just like lots of epic adventures in the Shire. Sorry to everyone in my family. Not enough.
What I love about it is like fan fiction. I think it's fanfiction.net or something. Like the website has not changed since I last was like looking at it in like late 2000s. Like I love that. Like nothing has changed. It is still exactly the same. It's great.
And Christine, how about you? The nerdiest thing you've ever done?
I have done so much nerdy shit. So my lots of curse here. So much nerdy stuff for Twilight. Like starting with the fact that like the first thing I did when I woke up every morning was check like all the Twilight websites for news, watch every single interview. Like I was obsessed with Imprint, which is like the Twilight podcast that the Mugglecasters did. I went to a Twilight conference and met all the wolves in 2010 in Parsippany, New Jersey. I paid for a photo with one of those wolves, like the head wolf. I think his name was Paul. I can't even remember. I had my whole, like, I was 19, my sophomore year of college. My whole wall was like plastered with like Twilight related posters and Robert Pattinson's face. And I remember my roommate being embarrassed when she had people over. And I was like, Robert Pattinson is beautiful. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. So I was super embarrassing in that way, but I thought like I was so into it that like I didn't even see how like an almost 20-year-old having that all over her room wasn't cool.
It's always cool. What are you talking about? All right, so just a reminder, everyone, our polls have dropped, so they are live, so you can start voting. We have very controversial opinions here. Team Darkling, Team Mal, or Team Nikolai. Twilight the book or Twilight the movie. Which Shadowhunter series is your favorite? Hopefully we caught all of them. And who's your favorite Spider-Man? Which we have lots of options there.
Whoa.
No surprise, Tom Holland is winning, although I will say Andrew Garfield is one of my favorites, but I'm not that one person who voted, or the one vote for that. So be sure to cast your vote so we can see who all and which series that you're a fan of. So Christine, kind of, you talked about going to the Twilight convention, which obviously is a memory you still have. So what are some of your favorite memories or experiences related to any, because I know you're a huge fan of Taylor Swift, Shadowhunter.
Yeah.
But like you have so many different fandoms that you're a part of. So, and I know that you go to a lot of these like book events and everything. So do you have like one particular experience that has stood out?
There's so many. I mean, for Shadowhunters, which is like supposed to be like, I'm representing the Shadowhunter fandom today. I mean, I made this crackpot theory video right before the release of City of Heavenly Fire. And this was like the first time I was going to see Cassandra Clare in person because I got tickets to her 92Y. Oh my God, is it called 92Y in New York City?
Yes.
Okay. I got tickets to that. And it was the first time I was meeting all my BookTube friends in person to like come to New Jersey and like hanging out together outside of like VidCon. And so they came to the 92Y2, and I brought the book to get signed. And when I got up there, Cassie was like, "Oh my God, Christine, you lit the fandom on fire." And I just like died inside because I was like, "Oh my God, she watched the video." And like, she gave me like a special set of like Shadowhunter tarot cards. Like, it was the best night ever. I like about died. And yeah, and then the other time was like I met Stephanie Meyer, and it was also like the best day ever. I'm like shaking thinking about it. But those 2 times really stick out as just like the most magical days. Because like, I don't, there's something, because I put so many videos up about the Shadowhunter world, so it was like so surreal for her to like have seen any of them. Oh.
That's great. Emma, how about you?
I feel like my collective favorite fandom memory is always that feeling when you're like, when you just finish a book or you just finish a movie. And it's like, there are 2 different things that make me want to write fan fiction. One of them is like, one, this was broken, but I still want to play with it. And 2 is like, this was so good that I need to get my hands on every single part of this and like create backstories for every single one of these characters. And when you get out of a movie or finish a book and it's like the second version of that, and you like feel like your brain is like fully galaxy braining, and you're like, I'm going to turn this into so many modern coffee shop AUs. And that's my favorite, I think my favorite collective memory. My favorite specific one of those is I came out of the most recent Spider-Man movie, and a friend managed to get me a ticket to like sort of like the broader media New York premiere. And I walked out and I had that feeling because it's Spider-Man, and I always clearly have that feeling when I walk out of a Spider-Man movie. And Rainbow Roll was like also there and like not there to get recognized. And I was like this one creepy kid who was like,
Wow.
Rainbow. I was like, "Hi, Rainbow." And she was like, "Whoa." It was very, very nice. I was very, very nervous. I'm nervous thinking about it now. And it was a good day.
What are the odds? That's
It's
crazy.
always so scary.
I'm like sweating right now. I'm like, oh my God.
I know, like reliving it.
All right, and Janella, did you answer this one yet?
No. I feel like the best memories that I have probably are like those midnight parties where like you would go to the movies or you would like go to the bookstore really late. I remember when Breaking Dawn. When Breaking Dawn came out, my friends and I like went to the midnight party, and then we spent the entire night just reading Breaking Dawn. I remember feeling so hungover the next morning, and it was glorious. But like, I miss having those franchises and fandoms that were big enough that made me want to do. I mean, like now it's impossible because we're in a pandemic, so that's not safe. Probably won't be able to do that for a while. But those were just like some of the best memories that I had. But I guess like to add to the emotional author moments, I cried just thinking about this. This was probably like the last author event I was able to go to before lockdown went in like place. But it was for King of Scars. Leigh Bardugo came to Boston, and I was in her line. Every time I see Leigh Bardugo, I just start to cry. I don't know why. It's really pathetic. But I got my book signed, and I was able to tell her like, your books made me want to be like a better writer, and because of that, like I have a book coming out like in 2020. And she was like, "Oh my God!" And we were all just like, "Ooh!" So.
She's just the coolest.
She's so nice. Ooh.
That's what I love about like the bookish fandom. Like everyone is always so nice. And you know, you always hear people like, well, you don't want to meet your idols, but like authors are just, I mean, you all are lovely, and I think like the readers and just this community in general is pretty typically like very nice and friendly and just like so happy for each other. And I love that. And I've seen, you know, just while I'm standing in line, I've seen other authors, you know, kind of have that moment with the person we're waiting to see too. And it's just like such a wonderful, like it makes me so happy. And I love that. And Lexi, I know, because you and I have talked about the midnight parties that we used to go to. Do you have like one in particular that was like your favorite?
I think I don't remember if I actually went to like the midnight showing of Twilight, but this is like more of a funny memory than like a favorite, but it's like stuck with me since then. I went with my mom and my uncle, who's like the biggest jokester like ever. And for some reason they played a trailer for one of the Barbie movies before Twilight. And like we're in the middle of the theater and the lights start to dim and my uncle and it's quiet. He goes, I'm afraid of the dark. And everyone just starts laughing. And then later they play the Barbie thing. And he's like, ooh, I love Barbie. And he's just being like a big jokester. And everyone's just like giggling at my uncle. And I'm this like young girl just like embarrassed as heck. And I feel like I remembered that more than like the actual seeing the movie in theater. But yeah, that's just like some dumb thing that stuck with me like ever since that. And like dressing up, obviously, like getting a t-shirt and doing that. The other big thing for me was like the soundtrack, because I remember like the movies would come out like the weekend of November 20th, 21st, and the soundtrack would always come out the weekend of like November 4th or 5th. And I would get the CD and I would sit next to the CD player and I'd listen to the songs and try and think of like, well, what scene is this going to be a part of? Like what song is this matching up with? Where is this going to show up? Is this going to be an opening credits? Is this going to be the ending credits and all that?
It always showed up for like a second in the movie. Like you heard like a 10-second clip at most, and then it was like on to the next.
And it's like you try and memorize all the lyrics beforehand, but then they would just play like the little instrumental part where there was no lyrics. So yeah.
Did the same thing.
Those soundtracks though, are so iconic. I think for me, you know, if we want to stay on Twilight, I remember it was New Moon. My friend and I we both had like wonderful parents who let us leave school early so we could get in line for the midnight premiere at like lunchtime, because we definitely needed to be there that early. And we were the first ones at the theater because it was, you know, like noon, and we were just sitting there, you know, on our phones reading and everything. And this group of like business people came down from one of the upper levels, and they were like, shouldn't you be in school? And we were like, oh, like, yeah, but we're here for, you know, the midnight premiere of New Moon. And they were like, but why? And we were like, we love this series and we're just really excited. And they were like, oh, okay, well, your ticket is on us. And they gave us $40 because it turned out to be like some of the owners of the theater. They just gotten out of like some board meeting. And so we were able to buy dinner with that as we were waiting in line, which was just, it was a really nice moment to, one, get free money for food. But it was nice that someone, like, they didn't laugh. They didn't, you know, criticize us. They just thought it was really cool that we were there that early to, you know, support this movie. So that was really fun. And for Breaking Dawn, I remember we had, you know, do we want to go to Barnes Noble or Walden Books for the release? And so we went to Walden, and then we found out that Taylor Lautner was at a BNN like 45 minutes away from us.
Oh no!
Because he was like originally from the area, and we were like, "Are you kidding me?" Even though we were all firmly Team Edward, it still would have been cool. So those are always really good memories. And then, of course, one of my more recent ones was when Moulin Rouge had opened on Broadway, and I had my tickets, and then it turned out that Janella also had tickets for that night. So that was a kind of a fun, you know, like Broadway theater nerd moment, and also a good way to celebrate Where Dreams Descend before its publication. That was a fun time.
Yeah, I miss it.
And speaking of Emma and Janella in particular, you both are huge theater people. And Emma, you mentioned Les Mis earlier. What shows, plays, musicals are you like super, super into? That like if you had to choose one to like see for the rest of time and that was the only show you could see, which one would you choose?
I just have to die. Gosh, I feel like top of mind is always Mamma Mia, because it's just one of those, it doesn't matter what mood you're in. Mamma Mia will fix you. If you're happy, Mamma Mia will just make you happier. So I feel like that's my final answer. Also, one time I saw it in French. I like went all the way to France for like a 2-week like study abroad thing. And we were like, you can go to one show, like soaking some culture. And I was like, I'm going to French Mamma Mia.
As you should.
What about you, Janella?
This is a painful question, DJ. I don't like this. I feel like, my ultimate comfort musical is the 1997 Cinderella with Brandy, like the Roger and Hammerstein's version. I could watch that one. I want to live in that Cinderella so badly. That is the musical that is like a piece of my heart. But of course, the other ones that I would love to watch forever and ever is like Phantom of the Opera, obviously. I really love Legally Blonde, the musical, so much. It's so fun. Hamilton, just like all the musicals. I cheated. I'm sorry.
I respect it. You know, somebody had to.
I would actually really love to see French Mamma Mia. I think that would be really fun. I feel like it'd be even more over the top than it currently is.
It was, and it was also really funny because they got to Voulez-Vous and I was like, oh, they didn't translate this. And I was like, I need to I was like, you're done thinking forever. Revoked.
I almost went to Canada to see a French production of Phantom, because it was like one of the few times they did like an all French version. And I think Sarah Boggess was supposed to be in it, who I'm like a huge fan of. And then I decided it was too far because it was like not in a like easy to get to location. And I was like, I'm not that dedicated to make this long trek. But Christine, are you a theater person by any chance?
I mean, I've gone to a lot of Broadway because I lived right next to New York, but I mean, I have to say Hamilton if I was going to say my favorite. I used to love Wicked, and I've never seen Mamma Mia in person. I really want to. And yeah, I'm stuck on Hamilton. Like for that question, that's what I would do. I've never been as passionate about a musical as I was about that one.
I was so hesitant and resistant to see that because I was like, I don't like American history. I'm not that into rap and hip hop. Like, I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna like this.
But then
and
it
then
gets you.
Yeah, and then by like Satisfied, I was sobbing, and then at the end, I was just uncontrollably sobbing. And I called my mom afterwards, who had to put up with my constant like, I don't want to go. Like, I'm only going because my friend asked me to join them, so they didn't go alone. And then I called her. I was like, oh my God, that was the best thing I've ever seen. And she was like, I told you it was going to be fine. So yeah. All right. Let's check in with our audience questions. Lexi, do you want to pick one?
Yeah, I think we'll start with the top one because I like this one. How has your favorite fandom impacted your writing? So Christine, let's start with you.
My favorite fandom impacted my writing. Well, my, life, I grew up on Harry Potter, so like magic makes appearances in my contemporary books because like I just want life to be magical. And I think going back to my like Amelia's notebooks, I love like putting diary entries in my books. So that, and you know what, my favorite fandom, I didn't mention this one yet, but I'm obsessed with Lost. And like the storytelling aspect of Lost, I feel like changed the way I think about stories and changed the way that I wanted to write stories and think about life. And that has had such an impact on just everything I want to delve into thematically and character-wise. Yeah, Lost is the best show ever. You have to watch it if you haven't watched it yet.
All right. And Emma, do you want to answer that one too?
Yeah. For me, I think it was just like the collective, every fandom I ever loved, I immediately had to write fan fiction for. And that sort of helped me figure out like what kind of dynamics I loved in like a ship or like a situation. Like I'm super into superhero stuff. So obviously I was like Secret Identity, like all of Twiggy. It was like, they didn't just have one secret identity. They had two secret identities. So I think that informed a lot of my writing just in terms of like, A, like this is the stuff I like writing, and B, this was like the stuff people were also responding to because you get pretty immediate feedback on the archive. And also just like, honestly, I think like my obsession with New York sort of began with like a lot of like adventure series and like superheroes series that I loved were like based in New York, and I was like doing all this like background research because I wanted to make sure my fan fiction was accurate when I was writing about the city. And then I was like, at some point my brain was like, oh, you idiot, like you should be living in New York. So and now half my books are set in New York, so I think that was sort of also a journey.
Do you feel like writing fan fiction and getting that instant feedback made kind of the official editing and revising process a little easier for you, and working with, like if you have beta readers or critique partners?
To some degree, yes, because I love edits. Like whenever I get any kind of feedback, I'm like, yes. But it also sort of like, it set me up for a very strange expectation that you would write stuff and people would be able to react to it quickly, when like in reality in publishing, it's like you write something and then you wait for 2 years and then people are like giving you feedback about it and you're like, oh, like past me did that. Like, I don't know her. Like, so it's like, it was sort of, it's an interesting perspective to come from in terms of the timing of it, but it definitely did, make me somebody who just like soaks up edits like a sponge.
All right, and Janella, here's a question for you kind of relating to this from Ashley, who is the author of Amelia Unabridged. She wants to know, how did your fandom love for Phantom of the Opera and Moulin Rouge impact the plot of your Kingdom of Cards series? Did you purposely adhere or steer away from any of their tropes?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, hi, Ashley. Thank you for the question. It's an awesome question. Yeah, so Phantom of the Opera and Moulin Rouge, definitely my love for them obviously is in this book. But I like to call like Where Dreams Descend more of like a reimagining, like mashup, rather than like a retelling, because I do feel there are those Easter eggs and like similar plot elements, but it does detract in ways that I kind of wanted to just explore the story, because I also was a fan fiction writer, shocker. And like clearly Phantom of the Opera meets Moulin Rouge. This book could not be more like of a fan fiction love child than like anything. So, I have like the core characters were like, my Christine, my Raoul, my Phantom, but I tweak them to be more, I don't know. I guess one specific example is I hate Raoul so much from Phantom of the Opera. And so my challenge was I need to make a Raoul that is bearable, that like I could root for. So like, even though I have those little nitpicky things, it's not like I'm writing it because I hate Phantom or I hate Moulin Rouge. It's more like I want to explore and sort of celebrate these characters in a different way and to just like take them in a different direction. And I hope I did it well.
All right, and before we check in with some more attendee questions, I do want to check in on the polls. And I'm looking at the Shadowhunters one in particular. Which Shadowhunter series is your favorite? And the options are The Mortal Instruments, The Infernal Devices, The Dark Artifices, and The Last Hours. So right now, The Infernal Devices are winning. And Christine, I would love to hear your opinion on which one.
I mean, I was pretty sure they were going to win. The right one is winning. The Infernal Devices, I brought it as a prop, is my favorite of the Shadowhunter trifectas, but they're all amazing. And if you want to read them in publication order, if you're wondering how to read them, that's my favorite way.
So what is it about that particular trilogy and that set of characters that you love most?
Oh, it has the best love triangle I've ever experienced in my life. I mean, it doesn't get better than Will, Tessa, and Jem. Like, they all love each other. It's heartbreaking. It's like gut-wrenchingly sad at times, and it's so wonderful. Like, there's so much joy between the three of them. Yeah, you got to read it. I can't tell you anything else. Like, I feel like it spoils it. I mean, that's like the big thing. Like, the best love triangle I've ever read in my life. If you don't like love triangles, read them.
All right, and Emma, who's your favorite Spider-Man and why? So for anyone who's watching, the poll options are Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, Shamik Moore, and Jake Johnson.
I could never choose a favorite Tom Holland fan. That would be so un-Tom Holland fair. But truly, I do love all of the Spider-Man. I have over the course of the years either projected like you're my boyfriend or you're my son on all of them. Everyone complains about the Spider-Man reboots and like all of the different iterations of Spider-Man that like come out, but like I love that it's like a character that we get to keep reinventing. I'm excited to see what like more reinventions are going to look like, because I feel like there's just so much potential there that's been unexplored. But I really like that Tom Holland's character, there's just like a levity to it. There were other moments, not to be like, how dare a superhero movie about trauma get too dark, but like, like I feel like they did a much better job with this new reboot with like striking the tone of like keeping it upbeat and playful while also having these like very grounded moments, and he's phenomenal in that role. Also, he can do flips. That's pretty cool.
That umbrella performance really sold me on Tom Holland, like forever.
I can
After that,
and just see it. I can just like play the whole thing.
I can do it with him by now. Like I've seen it happen.
I love how the internet has agreed that like anytime that video comes across our timelines, we all have to stop and watch it and then reshare it for more people to stop and watch.
Yes, I'm obsessed. It's my favorite video.
Somebody's like, the light turned green, go, and you like turn around and you're like, I'm sorry. Came on. Everyone's like, sorry, go ahead.
So good.
And I'm going to diverge a little bit more from the Ask a Question box, but Shadow and Bone airs on Friday, 3 a.m. our time, I believe, on Netflix. Very excited, but are you all excited? Or like, what are you most excited for? If you've read the books, are there any, no spoilers, of course, but I'm like really excited to see Ben Barnes as the Darkling. That is a moment of like dream casting come to life, which has only ever happened once for me before with Ian Somerhalder as Damon in the Vampire Diaries. I had read, those books in my Twilight phase before the show had even been announced, and I immediately had thought of him for the role. And so when they announced it, I was like, oh my God, I manifested this. So I'm,
Maybe you did.
I mean, I would like to think that I did, but I'm very excited for the Netflix adaptation of Shadow and Bone. So let's get a little Shadow and Bone nerdy about this. I know Janella in particular, you're a huge fan too. What are you most excited for?
Oh my God, I don't even know. Like, same. I'm very excited to see Ben Barnes as the Darkling, because that has been like, I feel like so many people like fan casted him for so long that it almost feels it's unbelievable that it actually happened. Like, I remember when like the cast list was like revealed, the internet just broke. Like everyone like lost their. I almost cursed. They lost their that. But yes, I'm very excited to see that. I also just adored the cast. I feel like they're all so cool. Like they have such a good rapport, which is really important for this series because it's such like a group dynamic heavy series that like all the characters really need to be likable in their own right. So I'm really excited to see, like Nej, Kaz, like Mel, all of them. Like I'm really excited to see these actors bring them to life because I have such good vibes when I see them all together that I feel like they're going to really portray those characters. They're going to do them justice, I hope.
I just love how committed they all are to the characters and to the source material. Like Ben has like the books in his background every time he does an interview. And like, I'm not the only one who has noticed that. And I deeply appreciate that. I'm just very excited to see how they interpret these characters that we've known for so long.
I'm also excited for, I know that Lee's going to have a cameo in it. I love seeing like other cameos in their adaptations. I'm just like, you! So it's going to be excited hunting for Lee wherever she is.
Yeah. And Lexi, I saw your face light up as soon as Kaz's name was mentioned. So please tell us why you love Kaz.
I am the biggest Kaz fan ever. Like someone says Shadow and Bone and I'm like, yes, but Six of Crows. Kaz Brecker is like my all-time like book boyfriend. Like I'm obsessed. And the moment Freddie Carter was announced as Kaz, I like instantly watched all of Free Reign, which is like the 4th show he was a part of on Netflix, and I've binged that because I was like, I need to take him in like every aspect so I can like fully appreciate him as Kaz. And he's been doing so many great interviews and just talking about the role, and like Janelle and DJ said, like how close they are to the source material, like how much they reference it. And I literally cannot wait. Before we started this event, there was a little snippet of a clip of just Kaz, Inej, and Jesper like sitting at a table talking, and it's like 4 seconds, and I think I watched it like 30 times just to hear like Inej says Kaz's name, and it's just like super like fly, like it's just slipped in, and I just like kept listening to her say Kaz, and I was like, Kaz. Yeah, I love him. He's just so iconic. He's so smart. I love all of his lines. The morally gray aspects of him are chef's kiss love.
I wish you all could have seen Lexi and I the day they announced the cast, because we had seen the rumblings and some of the early leaks, but when it was like officially announced, we were in the office because this is pre-pandemic times, and we definitely like screamed bloody murder and probably startled like half of the office, and we were just like,
hear you from uptown, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah. And then we made everyone else at work, if they hadn't read the books, we made them read the books. And if they had read them, we made them reread them. And we did like a little mini book club with everyone at work. So now our team is fully obsessed and is like, when we talk and like love this stuff, they know what we're talking about at least. But yeah, the Wednesday book team is fully obsessed with the books and the adaptation.
Excellent.
And Emma, have you read the books?
Oh.
I don't think we've ever talked about them.
I have no idea how we've never talked about this, but as soon as this is over, we should talk. The thing I'm most excited for is obviously Ben Barnes' The Darkling. I'm sorry that I'm like, here I am, just joining the pile. Or anyone who's on Tumblr knows him, Sirius Black. Yeah. That adaptation of the Marauders never happened, and yet we were all there for it. We all saw it. So that's what I'm like primarily excited about. But like, I'm also just really excited to see how they handle a lot of like these like ensemble scenes, like where like everyone's like all like part of the operation at once. I'm just like, I'm not usually like big into action sequences unless they're like really like, but I feel like these are going to be very cleverly done and with these characters that I have such deep emotional investment in. So I'm very excited. For once, I'm like, get to the action scenes. Like I really want to see how they did that.
Well, and I'm so curious with Six of Crows because like whatever happens, like we don't know. Like this is brand new for them.
I'm so excited about the Six of Crows involvement.
It's crazy. I remember there were like theories floating around on like what their involvement were going to be, and like DJ and I we spent all our whole day just like DMing each other different theories that we see, like quotes, people making memes of the characters, and one of them was like, oh my god, maybe they'll like, oh, I don't want to spoil actually anything.
Yeah, I know. I have an idea of it after watching the trailer. I don't want to spoil it either.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything, but like there was a theory, and like I think the trailer kind of confirmed it.
Yeah.
And I'm shocked, but I'm crossing my fingers that it turns out.
Excited for it.
I can't wait.
I can't stop thinking about Ben Barnes as Sirius Black now because he'd be perfect. Why didn't they do that?
Today he did a Instagram live, and like of course I had to watch. But he did an Instagram live with Rotten Tomatoes, and they were talking about how like people still want him to be Sirius Black, and he's like, I'm like almost 40. And like he's like, I don't know if this is a thing still. He's like, and if it is, I don't know why.
But he would be perfect as old. Sirius Black was supposed to be really handsome.
Exactly.
And didn't connect for me. I thought he was supposed to be like super handsome. Like, ooh, look at that guy.
See, and I always think of him as Prince Caspian, though.
Yeah.
Like, I think that was my first introduction to his professional career, and I'm still secretly waiting for like another Narnia movie where he might show up, but I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. But All right, so someone also asked, this is more of a general question, but for all of the authors, what inspired you to become an author, and what is your favorite part about starting a new book? Christine, do you want to start?
Okay, what inspired me? I mean, I loved reading, and so much that I wanted to like write my own story because I love storytelling. And so I guess like, I mean, the moment I thought that I actually like believed in myself to write a book was when I first read Twilight, because I had never like, it's so weird to say that I had never read a book with like a teen girl as the protagonist, but I had never like read a book for the teen girl as a protagonist. And like, then I read Twilight and I was like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Like, I could write a book about a teen girl. I relate to this. And I feel all these feelings and I want to share my own like, you know, story in that way. And before that, I wanted to be a writer, but like, I never believed that I could finish a whole book. And so I like in college, I majored in film and like I concentrated in screenwriting because I was like, oh, I can handle that. That's like 120 pages. Not like a book just felt so enormous because I'd grown up with like obsession with fantasy novels, which were huge and like so extensive and they were so intimidating. So yeah, that's what inspired me to be an author. And I can't remember the other half of the question. But
what is your favorite part about starting a new book?
Oh, it's just so exciting diving into like a new concept and exploring where that's going to go, and kind of just running wild with your first draft is really fun. It can be really fun. It can be really frustrating when you hit walls.
Emma, you want to answer this one?
Yeah. So I feel like I kind of have an atypical story on this because I did not grow up wanting to be an author. Every time somebody was broached that, I'd be like, I can't hear you, I'm too busy writing fan fiction. And I just like never, like growing up, like I just like never made the like you could write the thing. I was actually very dead set on like trying to be a Broadway star, and then like all singing things, and then like writing was something that I did to cope with my failure from my singing career. And then at some point, enough people were like, hey, like you could just like try to do this, but not for Star Wars, and see what happens. So that's kind of what happened to me in becoming an author. Glad that worked out because this is a lot of fun. In terms of my favorite thing about starting a new story, I think it's the part where you have written enough of the characters, and sometimes this is like chapter 3, and sometimes it's not till like chapter 8, where it's like they sort of are like, I am the captain now, and the characters are like, no, you said in the synopsis I was going to do this, but I'm gonna do something slightly different because I know myself now, and I'm the characters are self-actualized, and I'm like, okay, you brat. Like, I guess we're doing what you want to do. So I like that when you get familiar enough with the characters that you feel like you're having conversations with them. And it makes it so much easier to write their dialogue from there on out, enough that I have to go back sometimes in the first few chapters and be like, ooh, she was really out of character on the first page that I wrote her. So that's my favorite part, I think.
I love that. And Janella, how about you? What inspired you to become an author, and what's your favorite part about starting a new book or project?
Okay, so what inspired me to be a writer? I feel like this answer is like twofold and they kind of feed into each other. When I was young, I wasn't very gifted at anything. I wasn't like smart or athletic or really good at yeah. But when I discovered fan fiction, I wrote a lot of Harry Potter fan fiction. I was like, this is my thing. I love this. Like I never felt, you know, that sense of belonging in any sort of activity. And that coincidentally was around the time I discovered YA. And I was a very like reserved and shy child. I didn't have many friends, but I had a lot of books, and reading was really where I was able to like feel very like seen and belong, and like just have, you know, something to latch onto. So writing and being an author became like so meaningful to me because what books did for me, it was like, I want to do that for someone else. And I want to see if I can make a career out of that. So that's sort of like my inspiration for being an author. But my favorite thing about like starting a book is, I guess, like the honeymoon phase of writing a book, where you're like, you can't stop thinking of it. You are excited to get to certain parts, and like the time just goes by so quickly. It's like you start at 8 a.m. and you look up and it's suddenly like 8 p.m. at night. And I feel like I definitely felt that with Where Dreams Descend. That was my honeymoon book. I loved writing it because it felt like writing fan fiction. And I think that's my favorite part of writing, is when it starts to feel like you're writing fan fiction and there's this like joyous rush and you just can't stop writing. You're feeling so in tune with it. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's amazing.
I love that. All right, Lexi, I think we have time for one last question. So do you want to choose the last one?
Yes, let me pick one. Let's pick one that everyone can answer. Okay, this is a fun one. If you could drop your character in any fictional world, which world would it choose? Would you choose? And maybe let's do one that like we haven't talked about yet today. I know we've talked about a lot of fandoms, but like there's so many.
I was gonna say, sorry.
No, you go.
I don't want to say Harry Potter because I would always do that one. But if I drop my lead from Again But Better, like on the island and Lost, that was my gut instinct. But then she'd probably end up dying, so it would be tragic. But first, her like character would come full circle, and she'd have a redemption arc, and then the smoke monster would get her.
Great.
We're similarly mean, because my first thought was like, I really would love to see Pepper and Jack in the Hunger Games. I feel like there'd be a lot of like, Pepper would survive just like based on skill, but Jack would like be really good at attracting sponsors and just like get all kinds of stuff that he wasn't supposed to get. I feel like that would be a lot of fun to explore, all the alliances that would be made. Somehow it would still be about delicious food, even though they're trying to kill each other. That's my thought.
I love that. I could totally see that.
A grilled cheese falls from the sky.
I was just thinking that.
Oh my gosh, the longer I think about this, the more I'm like, oh my God, Shane on the island. Like meeting all those characters, like could you imagine like your characters meeting the characters from that fandom? Like it would be like so exciting to write.
Like, should we? Like, are we gonna sponsor this for us? Like,
write fan fiction about your own fiction. Okay, Janella, what about you?
Oh my God. At first, I was going to be very nice to Kalia and be like, you get to be in Caraval. I think you would thrive there. But now I'm thinking of her in Hunger Games, and that'd be more entertaining. I think she would really love like the interview process. She would love being dolled up and like trying to win over the crowd, but she would probably I don't know if she would survive, honestly. Maybe I should write it just to see what happens.
Yeah, my lead would die in the Hunger Games. She'd just die.
So when I first read The Hunger Games, I was like, why is she sitting in a tree the entire time? And then I was like, oh, wait, that's actually pretty smart. Like, I would have to do that because I would not survive any other way.
First, I'd have to get some upper body strength.
Right, to get up in that tree. Great. All right.
I need to rewatch those.
Me too. I read
good movies when you rewatch them. Yeah,
I feel like those movies in particular, like they just hold up really, really well. And I'm saying that kind of, I've only read the first book, but even with that kind of limited, I know, you can revoke my YA card. I think for me, like when that series came out, it was either like I was still really in my paranormal mode with Twilight and everything. So I think it just kind of like went over my head. And then by the time the movies came out, I was like, oh, okay, like I should probably finally read these. So I read the first book before the movie came out.
I can't believe this. It's like not computing. Catching Fire is the best book to movie adaptation of all time. You have to watch it and read it.
Well, see, and that's my favorite movie of this series too. So I'm one of those people that I don't mind seeing something before reading it, because if I like the show or the movie, I know I will love the book even more. There's only a few instances where that didn't quite work out, but I know that like Catching Fire for me was like the best movie of them all, and so I'm really excited to finally find time to like go back and read all of the others.
Yeah. That was like magical.
I remember when that casting came out and like Tumblr was like going crazy. Oh my gosh. And it turned out to be amazing. So
were you upset at first? Because at first I was like,
it was
like that.
Exactly. It was one of those. It was like that was on no one's fan casting. Like, so you just ignored all of our great suggestions. But it was like clearly they knew what they were doing, and we typing and making these graphics on our Tumblrs did not know what we were doing. But yeah, what a throwback to those times. I haven't been on Tumblr in so long, it feels like. I should
me neither.
start up again.
I'm on it all the time. What?
Yeah.
I am. Tumblr troll, sorry.
I think I use Tumblr now, but like, I definitely miss the original like fandom Tumblr era. And I'm really sad about that.
I'm just scrolling. I'm just here for like, I'm like, what are people up to today? Like, I'm not even there for a specific purpose, just to waste time, just to procrastinate.
It feels so weird, like nostalgically thinking about the Hunger Games, because like it feels like it was a second ago, which is so sad.
Yeah. Well, when did those movies come out?
2012 was the first one, I think. Yeah.
Gosh, that was like prime YA time. That's like when Shadow and Bone came out, the Twilight movies. Like,
oh, it was like the golden
Divergent.
Era.
Yeah.
Divergent. Love those books.
Gosh, what a time.
I loved that. All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the event. But I cannot thank all of you enough for joining us. And thank you to everyone who tuned in and voted in the polls and asked questions and added your comments and fandoms in the chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. As again, a reminder that the sweepstakes we will send around via email after the event, so you can all sign up. So apologies again for the technical difficulties. If you missed any part of tonight's event, you will be able to rewatch it here on Crowdcast, and we'll also be uploading it to our YouTube channel as well. So keep an eye out for those links. But again, thank you. Let's give a big virtual cheer to all of our authors, Emma Lord, Christine Riccio, and Janella Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. And if you want to order copies of these authors' books, you can do so from your favorite retailer. And be sure to follow us on social media at Wednesday Books to get more updates about events like this. And of course, have a great time during the rest of the YALLWest events this week. And be sure to check the official schedule to find out where you can catch our other authors, Asha Bromfield, Francesca Flores, and Romina Garber on Saturday. Have a great night, everyone, and take care.
Bye.